Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and here we are again doing another Stroke Buddies, Stroke Survivors Support Group meeting. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that a lot of people are interested in, but I don't think a lot of people know a lot about it, and that's stroke camp. And we've got Mary Lee Nunley with us today, and she runs retreat and refresh stroke camps. So welcome, Mary Lee. And why don't you start off by telling us how you got started in all this?
Well, I got started in it like a lot of people who are working in stroke services got started, and that is my husband had a stroke. And it was almost 23 years ago. And I was lucky to be with him when it happened. And I still don't know how I recognized the signs of stroke, because that was a long time ago, before we have as much out there as we do now. But I recognized the signs of stroke and called 911 right away. The camps started as a result of, at the 2-year mark of the caregiving, my husband has pretty bad aphasia. He's made a lot of progress, but aphasia is still with us in every conversation. And I remember thinking, how do people do this for 5 or 6 or 7 years? And our support group had people that have been caregivers for like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And at the 2-year mark, I'm like, how do people do this? I loved our support group. I loved the connections. I loved the people, but I felt like an hour, it was just monthly. So an hour a month wasn't really very much to get to know people. So the backstory of how it happened goes back 30 years before John's stroke, or 20 years anyway. My sister had a son who passed from cystic fibrosis. We had always gone to family camp and church camp and all kinds of things, and he was able to go because they were a family. But other kids with that disease wouldn't get to go to camp. So after his passing, she used his memorial money to start a week-long camp once a year here in Central Illinois for children with cystic fibrosis. We saw such bonding, such a connection with kids that had a similar disease. We did their therapies. They all have a lot of diarrhea. They all have tons of pills to take, but everybody was the same. And my husband, John, while we were dating, had volunteered at those camps and was crazy about those kids and all the fun that we had for that week. Well, we had to stop doing those because the Center for Disease Control wouldn't allow cohabitation for children with cystic fibrosis. So we had to kind of grieve the loss of that experience. So just kind of a combination of the planets all aligned at the same time. And I had a conversation with my sister about, could we do something like this for our stroke friends? Well, we just went off and running with it. We decided to make it a weekend retreat, knowing the fatigue factor for survivors, that a week-long experience might be a little too much. So we made it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The first one, we're coming up, this is our 20th year since the first camp. The first one was a weekend in September in 2004. And it went so well. In 2005, we did 2 camps because we had so many people by word of mouth hear about it. We limit the camps to a reasonable size because we know that with stroke survivors and the cognitive and memory issues that may be there, and the sensitivity to sound and such, might not be as pleasant with a crowd. So we've always limited it to somewhere between 35 and 55 people, more or less, for each weekend, so that the survivors and caregivers have a chance to really get to know each other, and the volunteers have a chance to really serve these people for the entire weekend. And it ends up that's worked. On year 3, my friend Larry, who is our CEO, he came to visit a camp. He and I had worked together in the past, and we remained friends, and he heard me talk about it when we'd had lunch. So he came and visited. It was his idea. I was trying to figure out all through this, I was trying to figure out how to bring more people to Central Illinois where we were having the camps, not thinking outside the box. And Larry said, well, what if we found sponsors, hospital sponsors or rehab centers or foundations and take camp to the people. And I was open to that, didn't know what it looked like. The how was the big challenge for me until I let go of the how is none of my business. And so in 2007, we applied for a nonprofit. We received that in early 2008. And we started courting hospitals, usually from a volunteer or someone that knew of us or heard about us, or a doctor that shared what a good experience it was being at camp. And we slowly but surely grew to our biggest year of 29 camps. COVID just about shut us down. COVID was so close to us having to close our doors, as with many, many nonprofits and businesses that require on being with people. But we had to lay off staff and cut salaries to 20% of what our salary was, but we made it. And this year, then in 21, we did a few camps, 22, a few more, 23, a few more. This year, we're back up to probably 27 camps in 22 states for those weekends. We are able to do 2 weekends in the same, on the same weekend, 2 camps, separate camps in the same weekend. We have 2 sets of all of the materials. So what do we do at camp? What do we do at camp? Polly knows what we do at camp. What we do at camp is things around education, whether it be formal or informal, things around socialization, support, and relaxation. We have skits, we have drum circles, we have crafts, we have some very impactful discussion groups where survivors are with survivors sharing their experience and their tips and tricks, and the caregivers get to do the same. As a caregiver, I've learned so much in these groups of how people cope, how they have solved a problem, and how they've, kind of made it work. So that's kind of a very quick overview of the weekend experience. Sometimes there is additional activities of physical nature. We have some rock walls. We have a couple of places where we can do ziplining that's handicapped accessible or semi-handicapped accessible, and boat rides and canoeing. And I mean, there's all different kinds of things. And that's dependent on the venue, where it is we go in that part of the country, the places that we reserve.
Wow. So 27 in 22 states, that's a lot of organizing to do.
It is.
I guess you got some help doing that.
We have a very small staff of just 6 people, but we have an awesome volunteer staff of about 20 people.
And where do people stay? If you got 35 to 55 people, I guess they stay in local hotels, or?
Well, no, we actually contract. We take care of all the details, but we actually contract with facilities, camps, resorts. Sometimes they're church camps, but all of them provide us with private rooms and private bathrooms. Sometimes there's 2 rooms that share a bathroom, but it's not sleeping together. The privacy of each survivor unit. And sometimes that's a survivor alone, a survivor and a caregiver. It might be a survivor with adult children, whatever that unit is. But the family unit gets to stay in a room themselves with their own private bathroom, so that they're not having to share with anyone else. Meals are provided, everything. There's a fee. This year, the fee, and it'll remain that for a few years, $150 for the entire weekend. That covers food, lodging, t-shirt. It covers the crafts, all the activities. On Saturday morning, we have a pampering time where we do mini manicures, we do massages, we do paraffin hand dips, and all of those things, facials. Everything is optional. You get to do what you want to do, and you don't have to do anything. You can just hang out. One of the nice benefits is a lot of the volunteers come from the facility, the hospital, or the rehab centers. And there might be physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists who are there for the weekend. So you get a chance to talk to them. You get a chance, to one-on-one with them in an informal setting. We provide a music therapist for every camp weekend. We believe very strongly in the benefits of music and music in a therapeutic setting. And so they lead a drum circle. They have a sing-along and provide that musical, of a personal nature, that musical part of the weekend.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. So the housing, they bring enough housing for 35 to 55 people and
Yes,
drop it
yes.
on the site?
Yes, yeah. We reserve between 22 and 30 rooms at the facility. So if they can't accommodate our lodging and our meals, then we won't go there. We'll find another place.
Okay.
And more facilities are going to the private rooms with private bathrooms rather than the dorm style sleeping. Some of the camps, were dorm style sleeping, but we got that, more and more places are offering those private rooms.
Okay, I thought you were bringing in like mobile units or something.
No.
Okay.
So,
Seems
like a perfect example, one of the ones that pops into my head, here locally, a couple of hours north, it's called Stronghold, and it has 3 different buildings, and the buildings all have private rooms with 2 queen beds and a private bathroom. Usually at least 4 or 5 of the rooms are handicapped accessible. They have a meeting room, they have a food service, and so we just go and take over.
But the fee is very reasonable. So I guess there's some sponsorship from the hospitals and rehab facilities involved, or else I don't see how you could put it on for that.
No, we can't. And I was adamant, like many people, my husband was working for Caterpillar, so it was a Fortune 100 company, but he only got 60% of his salary. I had to take off work to care for him. So boom, all of a sudden you lose a huge chunk of income. And I will never, ever turn anyone away. We have some generous, they're small donations, but like memorial donations and things. So we maintain a little bit of a fund for scholarships. So if someone can't afford the whole 150, but say they can afford 100, we'll help them out with a partial scholarship. The vast majority of people realize that it's a pretty good deal and are able to pay that amount. And for that weekend, but we've never turned anyone away. If someone needs the help, they give us a call, and all the registration is online, so we give them what we call a coupon code for them to reduce their fees. And we'll keep that fee for several years. We've only raised it. It was 75 20 years ago, and it's 150 now, so that's pretty good. I think John has his hand up.
Everything's more difficult in 20 years. It looks like John's got a question. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I got on late, but do you have camps in California?
We had one camp that was sponsored by Genentech, Covidian years ago. And the hospital did not usually, we were hoping it was funded by an outside source. We were hoping the hospital would pick it up and continue it. We courted them for a little while, and it never came to fruition. So we would love to come back to California. That was in San Diego, at UC San Diego. We would love to come back to California. We usually need like a warm lead, someone that would have access to people that sign checks or understand, like stroke coordinators or neurologists that would see the value in it. And then we pick up and do all the legwork on the front end.
I attend stroke groups through a nonprofit in California. I can send you their email address if you want.
Okay, that would be fine.
I'll send you their website, and you can look at the site and maybe contact them.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll do it in the chat. Chat.
Yeah, and I attend some local groups out here that do a Zoom meeting and have a few people that it's stroke group, and so I may have something as well for you.
Okay.
Too.
Okay.
If anybody's interested, they have on the website, they have a map with pins for all the ones, I assume for this year.
Yes.
It changes every year and gets refreshed. So you can look and see what's closest one.
And if you want to email me direct, my email is Marylee, MARYLEE @strokecamp.org. And
Also, for anybody watching on YouTube, I'll put all Mary Lee's contact info in the description underneath this video.
perfect.
I use that map because a friend of mine is a physical therapist and a counselor. He's attended 3 years. Suggested that I would make a good counselor. So there's one in Greenville, South Carolina, but it's this weekend, but it's closed down. The next nearest one.
We just packed the van this morning.
You just what?
We just loaded the van this morning to head for Greenville.
Well, and there's one later in the year in Asheville, which isn't too far.
Yes.
I'm in coastal South Carolina. Greenville's about 3.5 hours. Asheville's about 5.
Yeah.
Will this webcast or Zoom meeting be archived so we can listen again?
Yes. Yes.
So it'll be on the YouTube, right?
I put it on my YouTube channel, which is at Stroke Buddies.
Stroke Buddies. Okay. Thank you.
So
I'll share it with the groups I belong to.
once it's up, if you type in, go to YouTube and just type in Stroke Buddies, Stroke Camp, or it'll come up, or
Okay.
Marylee. It'll search the title and it'll pop that one up.
I did a commercial on stroke this weekend with some friends of mine who also had a stroke, and I can send you that info if you want to see it. I mean,
Okay.
I do my own stroke group here in Lodi. Lodi is a small town, about 10,000 people.
So Marylee, what do you tell me a little bit about counselors? I hadn't thought about this. I didn't know much about Stroke Camp, but when I first started thinking about it, putting one on myself, I didn't know you were doing it already. I guess I had more of a physical involvement in my thinking. What my friend said I'd make a good counselor. What makes a good counselor, and what do the counselors do, and how do they contribute to the whole situation? You mentioned some of them are PTs and OTs.
Yeah, the volunteers typically come from the sponsoring facility, but sometimes they have their friends and their family that they know would be a good match. I would say the number one thing is a selflessness, and an interest to help get to know individuals, just a helpful soul. Because one of the things that's important to me is that the caregivers get as much of a break as the survivor for the weekend. So like going through the food line, if someone only has use of one arm, the volunteers will partner with them, help them get their food, maybe cut up their food. And this is going to sound silly, but I remember that first year after John's stroke, I didn't have a hot meal for a year, because by the time I got him settled, he's diabetic, got him taken care of, cut up his food, got him all settled, and sat down with my food, it was room temperature. So it was just, it's always been kind of a joke in that I was excited to celebrate when I finally started getting hot meals again, when he was a little more self-sufficient. So some of these silly little things come into it. We also asked the volunteers to help us with staging the different areas. Sit down with someone and do a craft. We do different crafts each year. Sit down with someone and do a craft and hear their story. People want to tell their story. The professionals that come, like the PTs, OTs, that sort of thing, they tell us in the feedback, I do my job differently after spending 24/7 understanding. Many of them understand the caregiving role more than they ever have, because they see it, kind of in 3 dimensions. We asked the volunteers to, they get a chance to get a massage or to get their hands in the paraffin dip. They get a chance to zip line or do whatever activity that we're doing right along with the campers, kind of partnering with them. Hey, if you'll do it, I'll do it. So it doesn't have to be someone that has exemplary stroke knowledge or neurological knowledge. If they do, that's great. we ask them to participate in the discussion groups, to add what they can from their life experiences, or maybe just sit back and listen and support, and then know from the story. I mean, I think of, there's one caregiver group, the mother was in tears because it was her very young son. He'd had a stroke at 18. He was now in his 30s. And her health wasn't good. And she said, I don't know what will happen to him when I die. So then some of the people that were volunteering could have a conversation with her later, can kind of support her in a later conversation more informally without disclosing anything, but letting her know, information that they might have had. So, sometimes it's that. We have an education session in every single camp. Sometimes that's a panel discussion where we'll have a PT, an OT, a speech pathologist, and maybe our music therapist, and maybe a neurologist. And we just field questions. Here's the questions. And people get a chance to ask questions. Sometimes we have a formal presentation, but a lot of the education happens organically.
Well, that's good, because a lot of times you don't get enough time with your neurologist, and a lot of times with PT and OT, you're busy learning what they're teaching, and you don't get to ask those.
Well, and if you're like most people, you don't remember all of those instructions. You don't remember the why. Why am I supposed to do it this way? Or, I mean, so much of that is you just don't understand all of it, and you can't remember all the details. And even if they give you a booklet or a notebook or something, sometimes we don't read those.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, you have a stroke, and all of a sudden you have to become your own best patient advocate, your own physical therapist. You have to deal with a neurologist, and you're not at your best. You're overwhelmed with a stroke.
Exactly.
That's why I think if you have somebody, it's a good idea and your caregivers allow it, it's a good idea to take somebody with you for a second set of ears.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So since you're talking about caregivers and families, I assume there's some kind of close to 50-50 split between stroke survivors and caregivers?
Yeah, typically. If survivors are independent and can do all of their ADLs, activities of daily living, they are welcome to come on their own. We have had some caregivers who came on their own because their survivor wouldn't come, and they felt like they learned a lot coming alone. But it is typically, a survivor and a caregiver. Now we've got several places where, like, a couple of adult kids have come along there. I think of one couple, it was a married couple, and their two daughters came. They were ancillary caregivers, but their parents were getting older, or they needed to kind of help out. And that was fine. We had, I think of a couple and their daughter and two grandchildren came. So they were a unit of 5, because the grandchildren were teenage years, and they were helping out a little bit with the care. So whatever combination happens is what it's meant to be. I always say, whoever is there is who's meant to be there, and we'll serve them, whether it's a small camp or a big camp. We serve them 100% with what they need.
Mary Lee, I'd like to kind of promote our educational presentations. In the past, we have had people involved in stroke rehabilitation do educational presentations. Last year, we had 2 stroke survivors do presentations. And this year, Larry Bowles is coming, and he is a professional hypnotist, magician, and it has been so inspiring to watch him learn how to do magic tricks, card tricks with one hand as he's been recovering from a stroke. And he will be doing our educational presentation this year.
Thank you, Polly. Yeah.
I was just getting ready to ask Mary Lee what participants say, what they like about it, and I was going to come to you, Polly, and let you talk a little bit more about your experience with it. So, Mary Lee, what kind of things do people really like about the whole stroke camp? What do they say?
If there were 1 or 2 comments that I could say are most prevalent, it's I felt normal. I felt understood.
Included.
I was able to make new friends. I realized I'm not alone. So,
A lot of the same things that the stroke groups provide. You know,
yes,
we sit there after a stroke, you sit there and you feel like, even though I read the statistics, 790,000 people. I thought it was crazy. They sent us all home to reinvent the wheel. But and I knew that number was out there, but I still sat at home feeling like I was the only one going through this.
right.
And
The isolation and the loneliness that adds to depression is so prevalent. And that's one of our big deals. We need everyone to feel included and noticed.
well, we're social creatures, and a lot of our community gets upset when we have a stroke, and oftentimes have mobility issues. Getting places is more difficult. Unfortunately, some friends don't know what to say, can't deal with it, and disappear on you.
Exactly.
Um,
And aphasia adds another element of that, because one of the things that we're always adamant about at work is that, or at camps especially, is that we'll wait. If you're waiting to retrieve the word, we wait, we understand, we'll wait on you. But one of the things that this is a story from a few years ago that cracked me up. It was a place where we had fishing. So we had a gentleman who was happy to help with the handicap fishing. And so this one gentleman went fishing, and we were doing the craft up at the lodge. We were doing the craft and just having a good time laughing, mostly caregivers, a couple of survivors that love crafts. So anyway, it was 8 or 10 of us at the table, and we're passing paints around and doing our craft. And the one caregiver, all of a sudden she said, "Ah!" And she had a little tear. And I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "I haven't thought about him for an hour. That's the first time that's happened since the stroke." So that moment of her knowing he was safe, doing something he loved, and she could take a break and do something she loved. But the thing that got me was, because we've all felt, as caregivers, we've all felt that way, is, am I ever going to have a moment where he or she is not primary on my mind?
it's difficult. You keep talking about you were here and you were there and you did this. How many of those 27 do you attend? Sounds like as many as you can.
Well, actually, I haven't personally attended as many. I'm more in the leadership role now. And 3 years ago, I had breast cancer. So I had to have my surgery and treatment. And then the next year, my mother was almost 104, and she was getting very frail. So I only went to a couple of local camps because I wasn't leaving her. She passed a year ago. So I'm on the schedule to go to a few camps this year, but I won't go. I've gone to as many as 12, but we have, as I said, an army of volunteers who travel across the country with us, and our staff all take leadership roles going to those camps as well. But and John's health, he's got congestive heart failure in addition to his stroke and diabetes. So he's going to have a cardiac procedure in a couple of months that I hope will help his energy. So we're going to go to some camps later in the season.
Busy, busy, busy.
Keeps me out of trouble.
Let's see. Polly is, I was going to ask Polly. Oh, she's there. She's got home or something, not in the car.
Polly's upside down. No, she's not.
I'm going to rejoin on my computer. Just give me a moment.
Okay, no problem. Anybody got any questions? I can come up with more, but uh-oh. Polly disappeared.
Oh, I think there she comes.
She's switching devices. So
Mary Lee, you said
Yes.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Yes, the camp,
What time does it start and end?
Check in between 1:30 and usually between 1:30 and 3:30 on Friday. Our first activity together is at 4 o'clock on Friday, and then we're done right after the Sunday noon meal. So by 1:30, usually 1:30 at the latest on Sunday. for people to head home and get home for their, afternoon and for their afternoon nap and evening activities if they have some on Sunday. And I do want everybody to know, we do have on Saturday afternoon, we have a 2-hour block of time where there's probably some activities going on. We run a movie or a classic TV shows and such, but it also is a time for people to rest and nap if they need to. Some people need to do that, want to do that, but everything at camp is optional. If you want to go take a nap when something exciting is going on, you go take your nap or you rest or step away. It's nobody's obligated to any particular pod of time through the weekend.
Okay, so Polly, tell us a little about your experience. What are the things that you like the most about going to stroke camp, and how many have you gone to now?
I have gone to 5 of the 6 Virginia camps. So this year will be the 6th year I have attended. I missed the first year because I didn't know about it. But Ralph, I want to tell you, you are certainly invited to Virginia, but you will have to come as a camper, because even more than the camper spots, the volunteer spots are a fierce battle to get signed up first.
Interesting. I wouldn't.
So I'm on the planning committee, and I go as a camper because there aren't enough volunteer spots to be a volunteer.
Well, I mean, if you're there, you're there. I mean, if I came as a camper and you're a camper, it doesn't preclude us from sharing any knowledge that we
It does
have,
not. No,
or
you would.
cutting up somebody's meat, or being there talking.
Well, no,
to them.
you wouldn't help them. Maybe if you were sitting next to someone, you might help them cut up their plate.
But Polly,
the
Polly,
volunteers,
we wouldn't stand in the way of someone who is there as a camper helping someone, but it would not be expected.
It would not be expected. Oh, okay.
And I really like, Mary Lee, you almost got there, but at our camp, you talked about, not sitting down to a hot meal and that there's someone to help with the camper's meal. But at our camp, the care partners and family members are also, their plates are fixed by volunteers. So they go through the line and say what they'd like to have, and their plate is carried to the table for them.
Okay,
So that it makes it, that they are a guest.
absolutely. Yes.
2 of my first camp I went to, we had a really nice husband and wife there. And like John, the husband, Kent, well, he had very severe aphasia. He really could not speak at all. And he worked with the music therapist all weekend. And on Sunday, there was not a dry eye in the place when he and the music therapist got up and sang together. It was just, and we've all heard about how the music center of the brain is different from the speech center, but to see him be able to get up there and sing along as she played the guitar just was really moving. And then last year, we had a new camper, and I know her from a local stroke support group. And when she'd come to stroke support group, she would just be sobbing and in tears. She was just she's so lost. And we all felt so bad for her. And she came to camp last year, and it was wonderful getting to know her apart from, the day to day. And I really got to appreciate how very her quick wit and how intelligent and how much she had to offer. And she was quite a different person. And we went back to the stroke support group, and she came back to the stroke support group and was just that different person. Now, it's been 8 months now since camp, and she's starting to get a little discouraged, but she called me last week and said, we have to make sure that she gets signed up for camp. So she's on the list.
I met a minister one time who couldn't say a word, but he could sing all the hymns. Music's a real powerful thing. Mary Lee, since your husband has aphasia and you say you use music, you big believers in music. Is there any kind of particular focus or things that you do at stroke camp around aphasia and music? You mentioned drum circles.
Yeah, there, well, probably gave kind of an example. Every single camp, we make sure the music therapist connects with anyone who is interested that has aphasia, that would like to learn maybe the expression of some words using rhythm, using music. My late sister-in-law, my husband's, my brother's wife had a massive stroke, and she could only say yes and no. And yes, 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 no, 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 yes, no. Well, every once in a while we get an I love you. She worked with a music therapist for the 5 years after her stroke before her passing. She could sing all of the familiar tunes that she sang. I even brought her neurologist to tears because I said, Mimi, I need you to sing for Dr. Talcott. She said, no, 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 no. And I said, oh, come on, let's sing. And it was one of her, familiar songs. And she sang that song for him, and he had to wipe a little tear out of his eye because he wasn't familiar with the power of music therapy. She also learned to say some phrases through rhythm. I am Mimi. I am Mimi. And the other thing, they were teaching her to walk, and when she walked with the parallel bars without music, she went one distance. With music, she went 60% further. So we, at least twice a week, the music therapist would come when she was having physical therapy, and she created a rhythm with Mimi's gait. So she watched her gait, and she used a auto harp and strummed the auto harp. And as long as that auto harp strumming was going on in the rhythm that they had created, Mimi always walked further by 50, 60, 70%. We measured it. We were so excited. We were just giddy. So music therapy can work. It's using music to accomplish non-musical goals is what it is.
So I would assume you try and have a music therapist at every camp?
Yes, we do have a music therapist at every camp.
Okay, because I was going to say, I do some partnering with Med Rhythms, and they have a gait product, but they also do some
Yes,
stuff
yeah,
with
and
aphasia.
Med Rhythms has provided music therapists for us in the past.
Okay, well
The-
then there's no need. I was going to offer to connect you with them.
Yeah,
For,
no, we've got one of our staff is a professor out in Colorado, and he coordinates all the music therapists. He has a pretty good database.
The music therapist that I was speaking about was Caitlin from
Yeah.
Med
Okay.
Rhythms.
For Med
Yeah,
Rhythms, yeah.
I know Caitlin.
Kevin, you got a question?
Yeah. Well, it's something that I've been reading and I read online is that listening to whatever type of music you listen to for 1 hour a day really helps with aphasia and if you've had a stroke. So yeah, I'm a big supporter and think that there's some sort of connection because I do have and run into times where the aphasia I've had and I have comes to really affect me. So you know, there are so you know, if I play a song that I've heard, I can sing along with the
Right.
song,
Yep.
and there's no aphasia at all. And so I definitely agree and totally support it. But so there's something that I think anyone can do is you know, for an hour a day, put on your favorite tunes and sing along, and
Music therapists.
that'll help get them to a better place.
Yeah, we've had music therapists talk to the group about setting a playlist to uplift your mood, or a playlist that you can sing along with that helps you articulate, that helps you exercise those muscles in that brain, or playlists to help you go to sleep or walk or whatever activity. I mean, they can tell you, they can watch you walk and say, okay, you need to pick songs that have 60 beats or 120 beats or 180 beats. And when you're playing those songs, you will walk with that rhythm. Our bodies are tuned from the time our heartbeat, you know, we have a heartbeat, we have rhythm. So that was a good point, Kevin. And you're absolutely right.
Well, I am trying to get Mary Lee to come to Virginia, but she's told me that she needs the Learjet to be able to make that happen.
I do.
And so if any of you have, would like to donate a Learjet to Mary Lee and United Stroke Alliance, then we can get her to come to Virginia Stroke Camp. And then I've already talked to Larry, who Mary Lee said the CEO. And when you get the Learjet, if I can make that happen, he said that I could use it to go to camp in Arizona where my daughter is.
Absolutely. You're right. We'll sign you up.
Good luck with that.
There just aren't enough hours in the day and weeks in the year.
Well, let me tell you, there are not enough hours in a weekend for Virginia Stroke Camp.
I know.
We have run out of time. We have an exercise physiologist come and lead an adaptive Tai Chi class. We have Sportable, which is the local adaptive sports program, comes and brings equipment. So we were able to use recumbent bikes last year, and they bring different equipment that we can use while we're at camp. And we just, like I said, we had 2 stroke survivors give educational presentations last year.
And Polly, you bring up a good point, is the facility might have amenities that we use, swimming, all different sorts of things. One's got a miniature golf. And then the sponsors and their resources often bring unique and specific. So recumbent bikes will be there and at a couple of other camps, but recumbent bikes aren't at all camps because we don't have the resources in all of the areas that we are to bring everything in. So we work with the sponsor as to what special offerings or special connections they have with businesses or opportunities in their area. So that was a good point, Polly. Thank you for that.
And this year, we are going to have a golf tournament as a fundraiser. And I had seen that you had the mini golf holes way back when. What was that? 2005, maybe? From
Yes.
the photos.
Mm-hmm.
And so my son will be making us some mini golf holes to have at camp.
We have a traveling indoor golf putt-putt, 9-hole putt-putt in that we can take to places when we want that as an activity.
Has Dan Zimmerman and Spokes Fighting Strokes ever gotten involved with you guys? He does recumbent bicycling around the country.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, familiar with them. Yes.
Can't connect you with anybody.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. Polly, I'm curious what the 2 stroke survivors presentations were about.
Well, these may be familiar. It was Delaney Stevenson.
Okay.
And she was actually at the first Virginia Stroke Camp, and she did a presentation on recovery after stroke with that focus on parenting, since her children were so young when she had the stroke. And Jerry Taylor, who you probably also recognize, he did a presentation on going on a cruise, traveling after a stroke, because he went independently on a cruise last year.
Yeah, well,
So
I did.
We have a lot of stroke survivors, Mary Lee, that come. I drive 2 to 3 stroke survivors to camp, and we all come independently because we are all independent in our ADLs and live independently. So we have a lot of stroke survivors who come on their own to camp.
Thanks for that. I was just curious. Actually, I did a cruise and it was I'm pretty high level, but I'll tell you what, it was pretty challenging moving from a floating dock to a moving tender with both things moving. There are a number of obstacles that you run into traveling. Anyway, I was asking because I'm, considering volunteering and done presentations. So just curious what they were presenting about.
Well, I'm on the planning committee for Virginia Stroke Camp, as is Jerry, and the presentations are part of the stroke camp programming, so they are all planned in advance. We won't have camp until October, and Larry was signed up to be our presenter in January.
And where is the Virginia Stroke Camp held?
We are at the Airfield Conference Center, which is a 4-H camp in Wakefield, Virginia.
Not familiar with Wakefield. I can look it up though. I'm just curious how far it would be from here, since I guess it's still open to.
We haven't opened registration yet. You've still got a week. It'll open May 1st.
Okay. I'll look up where Wakefield is. I don't even know what part of the state it's in.
Winnie, do you have
Southeast.
Southeast. Well, that's good because I'm in South Carolina. If you said Northwest, that's far.
Yeah, but it's off of, we take 95 down to Petersburg and then head east.
Okay.
So it's
not
you
that
would
far.
have to come all the way to Richmond, but you're going to head east about the same amount as getting to Richmond.
Yeah. Winnie, did you have something?
I wanted to know if the location is always about the same areas.
With us, when we hear like a community or a sponsor, we try and look at facilities that will meet our needs with handicap rooms and private rooms and that sort of thing. We try and keep it no more than an hour and a half from the hospital or from the community. An hour is ideal, but it's usually not right in the community because usually there's just not what we need, because we want a setting that's away from the city. We've done a couple of them in hotels and they were okay, but we were just in a hotel. We didn't have a lake or a walking path, or we always get golf carts to take people on golf cart rides. So sometimes it is a bit of a drive from the city or the hospital sponsor, but we try and keep that within an hour to an hour and a half drive whenever possible. When we're 2 hours away in Texas, but in Texas they don't mind. They'll drive anywhere. They drive 2 and 3 hours and don't think a thing about it in Texas.
No drum circle or fire pit in the lobby at 7 p.m. at the
You got it.
at a hotel.
You've got it. And you have to share the swimming pool with a bunch of snot-nosed kids.
Right. I would assume once you find places that work and sponsors that work, that you would try to repeat them in the same place, because that way it's a lot. I mean, I'm sure there's still a lot of organization, but you don't have the added organization of finding a new place and new sponsors and starting over again.
Yeah. And we have a lot of the places that are good for us get booked way ahead. So often, we will leave a camp and within a month we will be calling them up to get a date. And we often front the deposit to hold the facility even before we have an agreement with the sponsor. Just verbally, they say, oh yeah, we want to do this again. But we do try and go back to the same facilities whenever possible. The only difference from that one is in South Carolina, Greenville and Columbia, we have one, we go every other year. We go one that's closer to Greenville one year, we go one that's closer to Columbia the next year. But other than that, we try and go to the same facilities unless they just can't meet our needs.
I know a
One
place,
thing we're working on this year is trying to have transportation from the Richmond area where both of the sponsors are located to camp. We are now wrangling insurance stuff, so we're working on it. One of our sponsors has a handicap bus, and so we're hoping that we can figure out how to use that to take, like I said, we have a whole lot of stroke survivors that come independently, but may not be able to provide transportation.
I know a place in South Carolina that would be perfect, but would, need a sponsor too. I used to work, I used to volunteer and made some videos for a boys' school that shut down, and they have unused buildings. They're on a river, they got a dock, they got kayaks, they got place for fire circles, they got all kinds of stuff. But it takes a sponsor in addition to
Yep, it does.
And it takes hotel type rooms.
that they have quite a bit of housing going unused because it was a boarding school. Well, it was a home for troubled kids, and they lived away from the home.
Yeah.
Right, but you want to look for something with hotel type rooms, accommodations.
Right, yeah, that's what he was, yeah.
So you think of a boys' home probably had a hall bath. Maybe they had a suite of rooms with a shared bath. You want to find something that doesn't have a shared bath.
And that's our job. When we find the sponsor, that's our job. We like people to make suggestions, but we always go tour it. We often tour it with the sponsor so that everyone's on the same page that it is an appropriate facility. But that's our job, to find the facility.
What about pool areas?
We love it when we have a pool, and that varies as well. Some places have a pool, some places don't have pools. Most places I think do have to have a lift now. We found more handicapped lifts into the pools. We have to have an abundance of volunteers to go swimming with those individuals, but I would say more of our places have swimming than don't.
We don't have swimming because we had it the first year. There is a pool there, and that was a big hit. The second year, we had to postpone camp from August to October because of a hurricane.
No swimming in October.
Yes, and so
Except
now
if you're in Southern
we are pretty
California or
firmly in
Florida.
October, and it's not really a good time to swim in Virginia.
For sure.
Unless you have a wetsuit. Okay, anybody else got any questions?
I got a question, Ralph.
Okay, Billy, go.
What happens, who makes the beds? Who brings the linen?
The linens are provided, and we don't have anyone to make beds, but the beds are made up. So if you don't want to make your bed for 2 days, you don't have to make your bed. But the linens are all provided.
Okay.
You just bring your own personal items for comfort and whatever, but the bedding is provided by the facility.
And I bet food services, well, if they have kitchens.
No, they have to have a kitchen. They have to provide us with good hot meals, and some places it's family style, some places it's a buffet line. It depends on the facility. We do work with them for the menu to the degree that they will allow us. Some places are very flexible with us practically picking the menu from start to finish, and sometimes we just have to choose from their offerings that they have. We try and be conscious of it being heart healthy, diabetic friendly, but we also, several years ago, they insisted no salt, no this, they had all these, the sponsor, there was a dietitian that was on the committee and they insisted, and we got the worst feedback from the food was awful. The food was dry. The food didn't have any flavor. So we're not so crazy that we're going to make you eat a dry chicken breast every meal. But we do try and make sure that we always have healthy options, such as a salad bar, cottage cheese, those things where you can have your proteins and modify your diet if you need to.
Well, and that's important. I'm a vegetarian, something like 10-15% of the people are vegetarians. And
Right, yeah, we always make sure we have vegetarian and vegan options. And most of the facilities ask us, do we have any special diets, any allergies? And we let them know ahead of time. That's another one of the things that we do.
well, I would think even beyond the vegetarian population, most people who have a stroke, or a lot of people who have a stroke, end up modifying a lot of things about their lifestyle, including diet.
Exactly.
Because, it's always good to take a holistic approach towards diet and other health aspects when you get your life turned upside down.
Absolutely.
At our camp, being in Virginia and being in rural Virginia, the drink that is offered at the table at all the meals is sweet tea. So we've worked with them to make sure that water is available as an alternative to sweet tea. And of course, they are in the pig processing area of the state. And we have several people who regularly come to camp who do not eat pork. So turkey sausage is provided for them. And we're actually talking about switching completely to turkey sausage rather than even serving pork at all.
A lot of nuances here. Sounds like having one with in the same place with the same food service and whatever allows you to tweak it a lot more versus having to set up again with new partners.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else got any questions? Anything else, Mary Lee, that you want to make a point of?
No, I just want to thank you for inviting me. This has been delightful. This is like, I have two sons, but this is like my third child, doing these stroke camps, and nobody at this advanced age should be having as much fun as I'm having. Oh, I know the one thing that's kind of cute. Every year we have a different theme. So we have done all sorts of themes, from a Western theme to a tropical theme to a 70s to 50s, roaring 20s, where we had a speakeasy and carnivals and different sort. One year we did Survivor, so we recreated some activities that if you were on the Survivor show you'd have to do. So we're our own best entertainment, and so each year we do have some element of that's kind of fun, and sometimes we do an announcement of what the theme is and everything. So this year it's magical memories, where we are just going to bring back some of the interesting crafts and activities that we've done through the 20 years since camp number 1. And then next year we have the next couple of years in our back pocket, but we're not sharing anything yet.
I was chuckling at Stroke Survivor.
Yeah.
My first camp was Tropical Island Getaway.
Was it?
And I have gotten to wear my costume this will be the 3rd time, because I wore it the initial camp year. And then in 2021, we were one of that handful of camps. We couldn't wait any longer to go back to camp, Mary Lee. And we had a, choose your own adventure type of theme. So
right.
I got to wear it then. And then this year with Magical Memories, Tropical Island Getaway is coming back out again.
All right. Good for you.
Got to amortize that thing.
Well, I am, and Jenny too, because Jenny is part of the United Stroke Alliance crew, and she is coming to our camp. And she came last time, I guess she came in 2021 and we both wore our Tropical Island Getaway outfits. And so she'll be back again this year.
Well, you guys have fun. All right, well,
I have
if
another question. Wait, I have
okay.
another question. What if you sign up for a stroke camp and then whatever reason you find out you cannot make it? What happens then?
When if you register for camp, it says when you're registering, we ask for at least a $50 deposit. That is not refundable except in a medical emergency. So if you sign up for camp and you pay your $150 and you call us up 3 weeks or a month before camp and say, well, I've got family coming to visit from somewhere, I can't come to camp, we'll refund the balance, but keep the 50 because we've already gone through all the work of getting you on the schedule and such. If it's a medical emergency, we refund 100%. If it's, like somebody gets sick or is in the hospital or has to have a surgery, if it's a medical emergency or a medical issue, then we will refund 100%.
So you have to show proof that it's a medical issue?
We are very much honor system. So if you want to call up, if you're having friends over for a big party and you want to tell me you're in the hospital, I'm going to believe you and I'll refund your money. So I'm very much the honor system.
What if your person that you're taking with you cannot make it at the
Same
last
thing, the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, no, we don't want it to be a hardship for anyone.
So when you're in California, you're thinking about like traveling to one close to you, or
Maybe.
maybe
Well, let's see, you could go over to, we've got
Arizona?
one in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado Springs.
You can come out to Virginia and go with me.
That's a bit of a commute.
My
Phoenix.
wife wouldn't like it.
Phoenix would probably be the closest, I would assume.
Yeah, probably. That's in Prescott. That's a lovely facility. That's a lovely facility there.
She's in the LA area, so
Yeah, we've had a number of California folks that came on over to Arizona.
do you ever try to just brings up a question because she's considering it. Do you ever try and put survivors together for things like carpooling?
We typically do not. We just cannot get in we don't have the staff. We can't get in the business of coordinating all of those things. So sometimes we will let our stroke coordinators or our team of sponsors and volunteers know that someone needs a ride. And if they can coordinate it, like what Polly, their group is doing, if they can coordinate it, we support it and share the information, but we do not have the staff depth to do that.
I think that's probably more on a local level. Right now,
Right.
we're working on, we have a survivor who wants to come to camp, and her care partner is her mother, who does not want to come to camp. So the sponsoring organizations are working on going through their resources to find her someone who she would pay to come with her to camp to help her with her ADLs.
And I would assume that you got privacy issues around like sharing who's coming to the one in Phoenix, say, so somebody could see if they could get together with them and get a ride or whatever.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Not necessarily HIPAA, but some privacy issues.
And I may be moving out to Vegas later this year, maybe in as soon as a couple of months. Do you have anything there? I mean, Arizona's actually pretty close to Vegas, so that makes sense.
We've had people come down from Vegas. We did do a camp in Vegas twice, but again, the stroke coordinator that was the sponsoring champion didn't pass the baton to the next person. We tried to get it up and running again, and then COVID hit. So we haven't been to in the Las Vegas area since I think it was 2016, maybe 16 or 17. So if we get a chance, we would jump at it. But yeah. It's not uncommon.
I was just thinking because it's a cheap place for anyone can fly in there for relatively cheap. Because
exactly. Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, a quick jaunt down to Phoenix from Vegas for sure. Yeah, you're right. Good idea, Kevin.
So Kevin's about to take his driving test and get his license back, hopefully, and he's got a little Tesla. It'll probably make it all the way on one charge from Vegas to Phoenix. So Kevin,
Yep.
get your license back, move to Vegas, and drive the Tesla on down there.
Yep.
One and done.
My husband's sister and her husband live in Vegas, so we'll look you up when we come out for a visit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been very, very informative. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you too. Unless anybody's got any other questions, we'll let Mary Lee get back to. I'm sure she has a very long list of things, to-do list.
I do have a pretty extensive to-do list.
Putting on 27 and 22 states this year, would think your to-do list is pretty much endless.
I like it that way. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I like to be busy.
And
Like
since most of us are on Facebook, be sure to check out Mary Lee is probably at least once a month, Mary Lee, on live on Facebook with United Stroke Alliance.
Yeah, we do our Facebook Lives, United Stroke Alliance on Facebook, or Retreat and Refresh Stroke Camp on Facebook. They're both simultaneous. And yeah, at least once a month I'm on, or we have something we're planning. Actually, this morning at staff meeting, we're planning some things for Stroke Month in May that we hope to be kind of fun and informative. So if you are on Facebook, feel free to check us out.
And I was just taking notes and I realized that Retreat and Refresh is R&R.
It is.
Yeah.
Actually, we go RRSC. We go RRSC.
Okay.
For our acronym, we do RRSC.
And Mary Lee, I know they're all grown up, but we'd love to see one of your activities with your grandkids again.
I hope to do that this summer. They miss it. In fact, when we get together with family gatherings, those of you that know me, we babysat our grandkids from the time they were born on Wednesdays. And then when this all came about with the Facebook, I did Wednesdays. I did a special thing with them on Wednesdays, and they loved doing it. They had a blast. They're 16 to 20 now, the four of them. And they came and volunteered at our trivia night Saturday night, and they still are very involved in those things that they can be. But I'm hoping this summer to bring them on board with another Facebook Live, just for old time's sake.
All right. Anybody else?
Thanks again.
Okay. Well, no, thank you.
You guys all have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can.